Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the e-commerce lab by Ecomcy, the place of everything related to Amazon FBA private label and e-commerce. My name is Vincenzo Toscano, your host, founder, and CEO of Ecomcy. And today we'll bring you Jared from RGM Tax Exemption, which is an amazing company when it comes to helping you with everything that has to do with sales tax and company registration in the US. Actually, over 1 year ago, I had their CEO, Ruben James, basically talking about everything tax related, and people love that episode. So I thought to myself, over 1 year, so many things have changed in the US, specifically, which I'm pretty sure we're gonna touch around some states that now you need to also register when it comes to sales tax. So I'm pretty sure Jared is gonna be dropping some tips and advice around that. So before we jump into that, Jared, I want to welcome you to the show. How you doing, my friend?
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yeah, great to be here. Really happy
It's
to
a
be here.
It's a pleasure, Jared. Thank you for being here. I know you guys do an amazing job when it comes to delegating everything in terms of the sales world, sales tax world, and the company registration. So we know that when it comes to e-commerce and Amazon specifically, where we specialize on, people is always afraid about this topic. They don't know where to start from or what the rules they need to follow. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna cover a lot of that on today's episode. But before we jump into that, maybe you can give us a little intro about yourself or what you do at the company, and also why you guys specialize on RGM tax exemption. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Jared. I'm General Manager at RJM Tax Exemption. So, you might have heard Ruben's podcast about a year ago. He's the CEO. We started about 2019. Ruben hired me in after probably about 6 months of going because he was doing 80-hour weeks because
I can imagine.
loaded. I've got a lot of experience in helping companies grow. So once I started, we went from about 5 employees to about now we've got 20 employees working.
Wow.
So I was able to really help him expand. He's the visionary. I'm the one who gets hard, down the bottom.
Execution.
I think the execution. So we're a great team. So it's great to be here.
That's great.
Staying in tune with all the changes in the sales tax in the US. We help people set up businesses. Initially, we mainly helped people who were not in the US
Hmm.
branch out and set up businesses. Then we networked into the US. So about 95% of our client base is now from the US. But we're now kind of doing some promotions, looking out to help people who are UK or Europe based transition into the US again. The tax is incredibly scary. So a lot of people are terrified of going over there for that reason. But we seek to make it as hands free, easy as possible. Give everybody the most up to date information and just really make sure they can go in there with all the tax stuff taken care of.
Yes, I bet. I mean, I totally agree with you and with what you're saying. It's so scary because when you guys, I'm pretty sure when you have these calls with all these businesses in the UK and Europe, and they're starting to think about jumping to the US, is scary about the fact that it's completely different law, different documentation, different things that you need to keep in mind, and putting that on top of actually opening a business, which is also stressful. It's like it makes sometimes people lose it. So that's why actually I wanted to have you here today, because we get these questions a lot, and with everything that's going on globally in terms of people having to think outside the box and diversify and expand to really thrive in the e-commerce space. A lot of e-commerce businesses in Europe, in UK specifically, they're seeing the US as an alternative, but they also always are struggling to really understand where to even start. What's the first step to do, right? And maybe we can start with that. Like, can you give us a little bit of insights about what is the first step? Let actually take an example from a business in the UK, right? What is the first step a business in the UK has to do when it comes to become sales compliant, tax compliant in the US, and like even register their company there? Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. So yeah, you need to get your foundations right before you start. You'll find some people just start selling straight away without even making sure they're compliant. Don't
Yeah.
do that because it's going to come back behind you. So let's start and say, do you need to get a US entity to start
Hmm.
selling in the US, or can you use the UK limited company? The answer is you can use either. So a lot of people
Hmm.
will say you've got to get a US entity.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily. What you need is what's called an EIN. It's an employee identification number from the IRS if you are trading in the US. You can get that under your UK limited company, or you can choose to open up a US LLC. So either or. Typically, if I'm working with already a company who's got a big brand, They're
Mm-hmm.
trading under a UK limited company. They've got all of their suppliers from outside the US already set up, and they're wanting to ship under the US. It may be better for them to, just get the EIN for the UK limited company. But there
Mm-hmm.
are some advantages of kind of opening a US LLC. Firstly, you'll be able to open in any state you like, so you can take advantage of some of the states with no income or corporate taxes. Also, you'll be able to, once you've got a US LLC, you'll be able to open up a US bank. So you're going to get like the best exchange rates if you're getting paid in USD, if you're purchasing in USD,
Yeah.
if you're using you might be familiar with it. If you're using a card, you're constantly getting paid, charged
Mm-hmm.
2 to 3%. It's getting chipped off your profits. So that's a big benefit as well. So, getting the EIN is number one foundation. Once you've got your EIN, you do need to be aware that you do need to make sure you file with the IRS. Uh, Countries like the UK, there is a tax treaty with the
Yeah.
US, so you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to pay tax twice. You still need to file. A lot of people don't know this, so you need to speak to your US CPA and file. If you fail to file, the fine can be upwards of $25,000. So
Oh.
here's some basic points. Make sure we've got. If
And
once
this
you've
to make emphasis for people listening and watching is regardless of the turnover, right? If you make zero
The
or
only
one.
exception, I can't go too much into the advice of filing, but I think the only exception is if you don't make any sales, you cannot
Ah, okay.
file. But if you do make sales, you do still need to file. So that would be. But my recommendation would always be to
Always do
yeah,
it.
to speak with the US CPA.
Yeah.
At RGM, we're sales tax specialists. We've got partners who are US
Nice.
CPAs. Any of our clients who are signed up under us can book a free consultation with our partners. So, if you reach out to us before you start, we can give you the link. You can have a chat to your US CPA, get all the information in front of you before you start. It's always what I recommended. So that's step one. Decide to yourself, do you want to open an LLC in the US? Would it be
Mm-hmm.
better for you for a limited use your limited company in the UK?
Yeah.
Either or. If you haven't got a limited company in the UK and you're just like a sole trader, I would strongly recommend opening a US LLC for the reason of limited liability protection. If someone's going to sue
Mm,
you, if you've got an LLC, much like a limited company, they can only sue the assets of the business. They can't come after your personal assets. If you
yeah.
start trading just under your own name, you're opening yourself up to all kinds of problems. So just
Yeah.
make sure you're covered there.
Super. Yeah. Very good advice there. Now, when it comes to the timeline, because some people also might think, oh, this might take so many months or years or etc. Can you give us a little bit of light on, what is actually, how long does it take, like from making the decision to actually have, either the EN number in your hand or the company in your hand? How long is usually the process takes? Yeah, to
Yeah.
do that.
So let's say if you use RGM to do it, then you typically it would take 2 to 4 weeks to either get an EIN for a limited company, or it would take to get an LLC with an EIN. That's usually the turnaround. It can be a little bit longer because you get the EIN from the IRS. So if you're applying for it in the peak tax season, it might be a bit slower. If you do it yourself, I expect it'll take a couple more weeks than that, just depending on how you are with forms. It can take even longer if you were to make a mistake and things like that. So, from my experience, people have tried to get it themselves. It's usually taken them 6 to 8 weeks to get an EIN from when they've done the
Good,
application.
good, good. And now, when it comes to another question that I bet you also get is the bank account, right? Because I know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, some bank accounts in the US they require you to go to the US to open the account, and for some people it's like, yeah, I need now to or even pay to go to the US and open a bank account. So, what is your experience and maybe some advice around this? Like, let's say I'm in the UK and I don't necessarily want to go to the US to set up everything. Is there some advice there or some way around that? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. As much as we would love to go to the US for a holiday to open the bank account, it's probably not the best spending of business funds. So we actually did it, or Ruben did it originally when he was trying to do this. He went to the US to open the bank because he thought it was the only way to do it. There are companies that allow you to open what's called a virtual bank account.
Nice.
So
Okay.
you will get your bank account, routing number, checking number. You can get a banking account, debit card, and things like that, where you do not have to go over to the US. You do
Mm-hmm.
need to have a US LLC. You do need to provide your passport and
Yes.
identification and things like that to verify, as would usually. But ever since COVID hit, when people didn't want to meet face to face,
Of course.
these options became available for some of these banks to open without meeting face to face, which is fantastic for e-commerce sellers, really, especially worldwide.
Good. And now, when it comes to opening a company in the US, I know that different types of company that you can open, right? Under the depending on your situation. So, taking consideration that most people, at least for this show that listen this, is people that's looking to open a company because they want to sell online, specifically on places such as Amazon or Walmart. What is the type of company you would advise, and the reasoning behind that? Yeah.
Yeah, so typically for somebody wanting to start, the best thing to do would be to open a single member
Okay.
LLC. That means that the tax in the US is just passed through, so it just gets paid to you as the owner. And if you're based in the UK, then that's when the tax treaty comes in. You can speak
Mhm.
to the US CPA.
Yeah.
You can then restructure later on for it to become an S corp or a C
Yeah.
corp. That part is kind of out of my area of expertise, whether or not that would be beneficial or not. Usually that's when
Mhm.
your sales have really gone high. But if you've
Yeah.
got a good US CPA in your corner, then you can use that. But what's great is that you can start off with the basic setup and you can just as and when you need,
And you can
rather.
migrate.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Try not to overcomplicate it to begin with, and then you can adjust depending. It's different depending on the business. Every
Of course.
situation is unique, so get it simple, and you can change as and when you grow.
Nice. Okay. Now let's start talking a little bit about what is been affecting most Amazon sellers lately, which is the sales tax registration. So we know that Amazon used to do most of it for you, and there were a couple of states that you had to do manually. But if I'm not mistaken, the last year they removed a lot of states from that automatic enrollment they were doing on your behalf, and now I believe you have to do those states manually. Can you maybe talk us a little bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So not quite actually. They've actually changed it. So as of the 1st of January 2023, Amazon
Okay.
in the US are collecting sales tax for every single state and remitting it back.
Okay,
So
that's changed again. Okay.
that's so there was a couple of states left. The actual tax liability is very, very low. So it's an
Okay.
interesting one. So people are very much along the lines of, well, Amazon are collecting all the sales tax. Do I need to register to any states? So let's say, for example, you're selling in on Amazon FBA.
Yeah.
They store your goods, let's say, for example, in every state in the US, which would breach physical nexus. For those who don't know what nexus is, that's like a presence within the state. It can either be physical, as in warehouse, business location, or it can be economic, a certain threshold of sales.
Hmm.
So, once you've hit physical nexus with Amazon FBA, the question then is, do I need to register to that state for a permit, even if Amazon are collecting and remitting sales tax? You might think, well, it makes no sense. And for most of the states, we actually spoke with all of them in the last 2 months just to make sure.
Yeah.
Most of the states we went to said you do not need to register if you are only selling on Amazon.
Okay.
But some of them said, no, no, even if Amazon are doing all the sales tax, you still need to register. You still need to tell us how much you made on Amazon, and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. So you need to make sure you can. We'll tell you straight which ones you need to register to. We keep track records with the states. We save their emails down. We have all the evidence in front of you. If you speak to some like bigger firms, they will tell you, no, no, you need to register to all the states. They'll try and
Yeah,
charge.
which I heard that. That's why I was asking you.
Yeah.
I heard that some states you have to register, so that's why I wanted to
Yeah,
clarify that.
if you speak to like most of the big firms, I won't name them for sake of getting into trouble, but they'll basically say if you've got physical nexus, you need to register. You would have to register to all the states, pay loads and loads of money for the filing as well. But that's not true based on the information that we have from direct contact with the states. Yes, some states do want you to get
Okay.
registered and do want you to file, but not all of them do. So even if you have physical nexus. The problem that
Okay.
happens a lot with sellers is they start selling on Amazon FBA, they have a great time, they're really successful, and
Hmm.
then they might branch out to, let's say, start selling on their own website or
Yeah.
Shopify. And if that happens, all of the nexus that you hit from Amazon FBA then comes into play. got a great example. So I'm working with a client recently who did just that, sold on Amazon FBA, then they moved over to Shopify. They sold on
Mm,
Shopify for over a year without collecting sales tax in the
mm.
states that they had Nexus from Amazon, which meant that they made well over $500,000 of sales where they should have collected tax.
Wow. Okay.
The
A mess.
average tax rate is 7% across the board.
Yeah.
So it $35,000 in sales tax that they should have collected. You might think, can we just say sorry?
Yeah.
Can we just pay it from now? No. If you get audited, you're gonna have to pay it back, and you should. So that's get paid back, plus penalties, plus interest. So the lesson here is, I would always say, if you're branching over to, let's say, start with Amazon, every time you change your business, let's say you're starting to sell on a different platform, make sure you speak with somebody about sales tax before you do it. Don't just get really excited and go ahead, because before you know it, 6 months has passed. Before you know it, you've got $30,000 of liabilities, and the states are coming
Hmm.
after you.
Yeah. So basically, to summarize this idea, is that the best advice if you start selling in the US to avoid any issues, like even if you're doing only Amazon, still talk with somebody like you guys, so you can help them identify the steps, as you mentioned, that you still have to register regardless of the Nexus, I guess, right?
That's it. Yeah. So make sure get your foundation set. I would avoid reading a lot of forums online, because a lot of
Yeah.
people
You get
drop their
confused. That's the
opinion.
thing.
You
Yeah.
get very confused. Also, you'll find, as you mentioned, how the sales tax rules are constantly evolving and changing.
Hmm.
So, as somebody not very experienced, I might go online, I might come to taxjar.com, and there'll be a
Yeah.
blog from October 2021. I'll read it and I'll think, oh, that's great,
I'm
carry
fine.
on.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
that's nearly 2 years ago. Now it could be completely irrelevant. These things don't get taken down. So, we are obviously, this is our profession. We are constantly reading and staying on top of things. So, we're here to help people in that sense.
Awesome. That's very good. Now, maybe another thing I usually like to do with this type of topics is if you can maybe mention some mistakes you see people doing a lot into around this specific, topic of taxes and company registration. The reason why I find that very useful is because usually from mistakes, that's how we learn, right? So I don't
Yeah.
know if maybe you can think about some cases. Of course, we are naming any company of things that you are seeing that people are doing and they definitely shouldn't be doing, that is affecting a lot their business in terms of sales tax or maybe even company. Yeah, that you can share.
Yeah. So, what one mistake that I think people or businesses do is they don't realize that they can be sales tax exempt when they
Mm,
start posting. So there's a rule
okay.
in the US. So if you're buying a product, much like VAT, if you're buying a product for resale, you don't need to pay VAT in the UK. It's very easy to be a VAT registered and not pay it back. With sales tax, it's a lot more complicated. And so people often miss out on the opportunity to get sales tax exempt. So
Mm,
there is a way to not pay sales tax on purchases, provided you have the right sales tax set up and the right permits. So, like I said, sales tax is on average 7%. So every time you're purchasing, you're losing out on that seven
yeah.
percent extra. And the reason why it's a big mistake is because, let's say you're selling, you're not tax exempt, you don't know about it, and you're selling the same product as me.
Mhm.
I can sell the same product cheaper than you, and I can make a bigger profit.
Yeah.
So it's one of the most important things to do when selling it in the US, is to make sure, if you're purchasing from wholesalers, they're not going to charge sales tax anyway, so you're fine there. But let's say you're maybe drop shipping or purchasing from
Mm,
retailers in bulk for repackaging or whatever it might be, make sure you check, are they charging you sales tax when you buy those products? If they are, can you get tax exempt? It's the
mm,
easiest savings you can get straight off the bat, and it keeps you competitive going forward. So that's a common thing that people don't quite realize how important it
mm.
is. And then they might fail, their business might not work. They're like, my margin is rubbish.
It's
Seven
because you
percent,
didn't consider that. Yeah.
yeah, 7% could be your entire margin. Obviously, it's quite low, but it's very competitive
Yeah.
these days. So that's something that a
That's
mistake.
crazy.
So yeah,
Yeah,
well,
that's something even myself I learned. And I think for this, just for all the listeners, the way you find out about this is there a way that I can? I mean, how do I even figure out that I can be exempt? Is that something that I could even look online if I would like to just do a quick search, or is something more complicated than that?
So most places. So let's say you are purchasing products on Walmart.com,
Yeah.
and you were reselling them on the Shopify store. Most of these big retailers have got like a section at the bottom where it will tell
Mm,
you about tax exemption. Most of them allow tax exemption for resellers. A few of them don't. So you could literally Google it. So
I see. Okay.
you're using Walmart, if you're using Costco, you could be like, right, Costco US tax exemption, and you'll be very quickly be able. You might get an email address you can reach
Yeah.
out to. We have got a long list of suppliers that we know it can be done for. Some suppliers, you basically just upload all the permits to their website and it's just tax exempt. It's great.
Mm,
Others are a bit more annoying and you need to supply the resale certificates on every single purchase. But, it's definitely worth looking at. It's the people who go that extra little step and extra
yeah.
mile who make the most profit, and that's what we want for our audience.
Good. That's a very good tip, and to conclude today's episode, even myself, I learned from that. So thank you for sharing that. And I think now before we conclude, I want to give you a minute or so you can tell us more about how people can get in contact with you, because we know that we are only scratching the surface, and a lot of people actually need support with this, especially now that they're expanding to the US and they might need your services. So yeah, what's the best place to find you and get in contact with you and your team? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So me personally, we'll share the email afterwards. You can get me on jared@rjmtaxexemption.com. I'll even supply my own booking link. So anybody, who listens to this podcast can get in a free consult with me. So we can talk about, it could be anything, setting up your business,
Hmm.
the sales tax exemption, and we're also proud to be partners with Ecomcy, and we can offer 20% discount on any of our
Awesome.
services, which people sign
Thank
up
you.
from here. So, we've got our full services available on our website, 20% off the full cost off the back of this. So, that's exciting to share. But yeah, we've got the email. There's a lot to cover. I can imagine everyone who's listening situation might be quite unique. But, we're happy we can help significantly in many ways.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jerry. It's been a pleasure to have you on board today. And yes, I'm gonna make sure to put everything down in the description. Looking forward to have you again in the future to discuss more about taxes. Yes, it's always something interesting and it's always evolving. So I'm pretty sure a lot of things are gonna change next year.
That's it. It's always interesting. We all hate it. We all dread it. But, RJM will make it nice and easy for you. So, yeah, reach out.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jerry. A pleasure.
Thanks, Evan. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.